I woke to the distant hum of traffic outside our bedroom window, and the lingering scent of coffee in the air. My eyes fluttered open at exactly 6:47 a.m., as they always did, and I lay for a moment tracing the familiar patterns of the ceiling. Light filtered through the blinds, casting stripes across my cheeks. And for an instant I felt the gentle calm of suburbia settling over me. Then I remembered the text message blinking on my phone, and the calm evaporated. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the wooden floor cool beneath my feet as I padded down the hallway. Each step felt heavier than the last. In the kitchen, our old stainless steel coffee maker gurgled its final notes and I poured a mug, the steam curling upward like a memory I could almost grasp. I flipped it on the counter without a thought, my mind already racing through the words I had read. My husband had called them just friends. But something in that phrasing had set off alarms I couldn't ignore. We'd been married for 9 years, almost a decade of shared dreams and whispered promises. I am 35 now, with laugh lines that crease at the corners of my eyes and a streak of gray in my dark hair. I work as a graphic designer for a small agency downtown, and my husband, Mark, is an IT consultant whose job takes him on the road at least twice a month. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue in Chicago, bonded over our love of sci-fi novels and spicy margaritas, and before long, we became inseparable. After a whirlwind romance, we tied the knot beneath a canopy of oak trees in early October, the air crisp and the leaves red as rubies. Those early years were a blur of adventure road trips to national parks, midnight dance parties in our living room, planning vacations that never seemed long enough. We built a life together, one carefully framed photograph at a time. But then, Jeff arrived. He was Mark's colleague, younger by nearly a decade. With an easy smile and a fascination for craft beer that matched my own, I liked him instantly. He dropped by our house unannounced sometimes, sporting a hoodie and jeans, to watch football or play video games in our basement. He told me about his childhood in Michigan, talked about his insecurities, and slowly he became more than just a friend to me. I reveled in our conversations, our shared laughter echoing through the rooms of our home. I never imagined a day when I'd question his motives. Then, last night, curiosity tugged at me. I reached for Mark's phone. He'd left it unlocked on the coffee table and I hesitated at first, my thumb hovering, but the unease had been building for days and I needed to know. The text thread I found was innocuous at first, beer recommendations and weekend plans. But as I scrolled upward, my heart pounded harder. Dinner invitations turned into late-night meetups. Inside jokes evolved into something more intimate. The messages past 1 a.m. on a Thursday and again at 3:14 a.m. on Saturday. My stomach twisted. I tapped the search bar and typed hotel. My breath caught when I saw it, a reservation under Mark's name at the Hawthorne Suites. Dated for last Friday night. 2 nights ago. I stared at the screen, unable to process how the man I trusted completely could have slipped away with someone I considered a friend. The confirmation number glowed on the display, mocking me with its certainty. Tears boiled behind my eyes as I sank onto the kitchen stool, clutching the warm mug as if it might anchor me back to reality. My fingers trembled across my lips. I could taste the bitterness of betrayal mixed with warm coffee. I thought of our living room earlier that week, when Mark had kissed me goodbye before a business trip, whispering, "Nothing's going on with Jeff. He's like a brother to me." I forced myself to replay his exact words, searching for hesitation, a slip in tone, any clue I'd missed. But he'd sounded so sure, so sincere. How had I been so blind? I drained the last of my coffee and stood, tension coiling through my shoulders like barbed wire. I couldn't stay here, orbiting questions without answers. I grabbed my keys and slipped into my leather jacket, the cold zipper tough between my fingers. Outside, the morning air was brisk, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass from our neighbor's lawn. Birds chirped in the maple tree by the driveway, oblivious to my turmoil. I slid into my car and started the engine, the dashboard lights illuminating the clouds gathering overhead. Rain threatened, and I didn't want to think about how water would smear tomorrow's news across the windshield. My plan was simple. I would drive to the Hawthorne Suites, pretend I was an off-duty inspector or a weary traveler who'd lost her reservation. I would knock on the door marked Suite 312 and see with my own eyes what had happened that night. I'd uncover the truth, no matter how devastating. My heart hammered as I pulled out of the garage, tires crunching on the gravel. Each stoplight felt like a checkpoint on a journey I never signed up for, but I couldn't turn back. Now, not after seeing that reservation, not after the lies. Not when my marriage teetered on the edge of a precipice and the person who promised to love me had whispered that he and Jeff were just friends. The road stretched ahead, wet with the promise of rain, and I gripped the wheel with white-knuckled determination. I whispered to myself, over and over, that I deserved the truth, and as I merged onto the highway, the sky darkened as if mirroring my thoughts. The hotel would reveal the answer one way or another. I took a deep breath, straightened my spine, and pressed the accelerator down. Soon, I would confront the man I love and the friend I once trusted, and nothing would ever be the same. The rain fell in sheets by the time I reached the hotel, droplets rattling against the windshield like nervous thoughts in my mind. I parked under a flickering street lamp and sat, my chest tightening with anticipation, drawing deep breaths to steady myself. Lightning flashed behind low clouds, illuminating the neon Hawthorne Suite sign, its letters water-streaked and vague. What would I find behind that door? A simple misunderstanding or something that would shatter my world? I locked the car and pulled my coat tighter, the damp air seeping through. My heart pounded as I crossed the wet pavement toward the lobby entrance, each step a countdown to the truth I had come to demand. I stepped into the lobby, the scent of stale carpet and floral air freshener hitting me like a welcome I didn't want. The reception desk stood to my right, where a young clerk peered over an old computer. He looked up as I approached. "Can I help you?" he asked. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'm here about a reservation under Mark Mitchell." He flipped through a small ledger before returning to the screen. After a moment, he said, "Mr. Mitchell checked in last Friday and checked out Sunday morning." I nodded, thanked him, and turned toward the hallway, my pulse racing. The desk lamp cast long shadows across the marble surface, and I wiped my palm on my coat as I walked away. The corridor was cold, smelling of disinfectant, the wallpaper's floral pattern looking artificial under buzzing lights. My heels clicked against the polished floor as I approached a bank of elevators. Pressing the call button, a soft hum of the HVAC system underscored the silence. The doors lit up through and slid open with a sigh. I stepped out onto a geometric patterned carpet that seemed to swirl beneath my feet. I gripped the strap of my bag, resolving not to back down. A long hallway stretched out before me, lined with identical doors. At the far end, a window reflected my anxious face. Ahead, Suite 312 waited. I paused outside door 312, hand raised but trembling. Muffled voices drifted through the crack. Jeff's low laugh, then Mark's reply, voice edged with tension. I pressed my ear to the wood, heart pounding so loud I feared they'd hear it. A faint glow seeped from beneath the door, the minibar's light warning me. Rain tapped urgently against the window in the corridor, echoing in my mind. Questions collided in my head. What were they saying? Who hurt? Who first? I fought to steady my breath, knowing the answer lay behind this thin barrier. I forced my trembling hand down and exhaled slowly, pushing panic back inside its cage. I tapped lightly and called room service in the practiced monotone my parents taught me for awkward social calls. When they quieted, I tapped again. Louder, housekeeping. The door cracked open a few inches, revealing the muted outlines of the suite beyond. I stepped inside, feeling the air switch to something warmer and thick with tension. The suite was modest, a king bed pushed against the far wall and a small couch by the window. On the dresser sat two coffee cups and an ice bucket, still half full. Everything felt intimate and wrong, and I wanted to run. They had been facing each other near the window. Jeff in our old blue hoodie looked smaller under the city lights, and Mark's jacket draped over the back of the chair glowed faintly. Jeff's tear-streaked cheeks caught the light as he whispered, "I didn't mean to hurt you, Mark." Mark reached out, brushing a lock of hair away from Jeff's forehead, his hand shaking. My world tilted. It wasn't an affair in the traditional sense. It was deeper, a struggle of identity I hadn't seen coming. Suddenly the hotel reservation made sense, a retreat, not infidelity, but a discovery neither had prepared me to witness. I cleared my throat, the sound cracking like a gunshot in the quiet room. Both men jerked as if struck, eyes wide. Mark's face drained of color, Jeff's gaze flickered to terror. I stood at the threshold, rain slick on my sleeves, voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell me?" Mark swallowed, stepping forward. "I was scared. I didn't know how." Jeff looked away. "I didn't want to ruin your marriage." The weight of my suitcase felt like a testament to how far I'd come for this moment. Lamp shades were off, leaving corners of the room in shadows. The silence that followed felt endless as thunder rolled outside. My thoughts spun in a cyclone of shock, sadness, and painful understanding. I felt suddenly both intruder and betrayed partner, the walls closing in. I took a shaky step backward. Mark reached for me, voice thick. "I want us to figure this out, together." The rain outside eased, drumming softly as if giving space. I glanced at Jeff, who offered a sad smile. "I'll leave," he said quietly, standing. I nodded numbly, stepping aside as he exited. Mark and I stood alone in the quiet hotel suite, two figures in the aftermath of a revelation that would change everything. Confronting them was only the beginning of a journey I wasn't sure I was ready to take. I left the suite with an ache twisting through my chest, Corridor lights flickered like unspoken questions, and each step echoed my racing thoughts. Outside, rain pattered against asphalt, tracing rivulets that mirrored tears I refused to shed. Mark followed cautiously as I approached the elevator doors. The hum of the metal box felt oppressive. I gripped my bag strap tightly, forcing my lips to stay silent rather than crumble under the vulnerability I sensed. We rode down in silence, the elevator's ding slicing through the tension. I stared at the gleaming doors, watching them slide, open to a dim lobby littered with discarded newspapers and forgotten umbrellas. Mark's presence at my side felt both comforting and alien. Only once we reached the front doors did he speak. "I want to explain," he murmured, voice rough. I looked into his eyes and realized there was no easy answer, only truths awaiting our courage. The drive home blurred in asphalt and rain. I kept my eyes on the road while Mark looked for words. Streetlights smeared through the windshield, tracing golden arcs across my vision. I clenched the wheel, knuckles white, resisting the urge to call my best friend. Instead, I inhaled the scent of his jacket and remembered the man I married, the one who once chased storms with me. Fear battled hope in every heartbeat. When we pulled into our driveway, the porch light illuminated my hesitation. Home felt foreign, a museum of memories waiting to judge me. Mark parked and turned to face me, rain beating on his hair. He opened the door, but I remained seated, chest heavy. "I want to tell you everything," he promised. Silence hovered around us. The night breathed softly, crickets hidden beneath hedges. The truth was a fragile thing, waiting for careful hands. I stepped inside hesitantly, the familiar creak of floorboards wrenching my heart. Our living room smelled of lavender from the candle I'd lit that afternoon. Photographs lined the mantel, snapshots of a life I believed unbreakable. Mark's voice followed me. "I didn't plan this. I was trying to understand myself." I sank onto the couch, rainwater dripping from my sleeves onto the hardwood. In that moment, I felt utterly alone. Mark knelt before me, eyes pleading for forgiveness. "I never wanted to hurt you," he whispered, his words tumbled with shame and longing. I traced the coffee table's grain with trembling fingers, each knot reminding me how tightly we'd once been bound. The confession hung between us, raw and fragile. I closed my eyes and exhaled a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, my heart thumping in the sudden silence. We talked for hours, voices drifting in and out of anger, sorrow, and tentative understanding. I discovered Jeff's role wasn't what I'd assumed. He'd come seeking solace rather than romance, carrying his own burdens. Mark admitted he'd found comfort in Jeffrey's acceptance when his own doubts grew heavy. The layers of betrayal felt different now, rooted in confusion, not malice. By midnight, exhaustion claimed us both. We sat side by side, shoulders touching, staring at empty mugs and ashtrays of half-smoked cigarettes. In the early morning hours, sleep finally crept in and I dreamt of our wedding vows, spoken under a sky streaked with autumn gold. I felt Mark's hand brushing mine, promising unwavering support. When dawn's pale light edged through the curtains, I woke to his whispered apology and the sound of fresh coffee brewing. Our bedroom looked unchanged, as if the night's revelations had passed like a storm, leaving only damp windowsills in its wake. We spent the next days in hushed conversation, choosing our words carefully as if diffusing a fragile bomb. We scheduled couples therapy with a counselor renowned for helping partners navigate hidden truths. On our way to the first session, we held hands in the back seat, the silence comfortable now. Outside, spring flowers nodded along the sidewalk, resilient against wind and rain. I realized then that healing might begin with small acts of bravery, honest confessions, and promises kept. One evening weeks later, Mark surprised me with a backyard picnic. The sky blushed pink as the sun set and fireflies danced among maple leaves. He brought a basket with my favorite cheeses, fresh bread, and a bottle of rose. We lay on a quilt and talked about future plans, a coastal trip next summer, and a vow renewal. Trust felt fragile and hopeful, like blossoms after frost. I began writing in a journal again, pouring out doubts and victories, tracking every step of our recovery. Each entry felt like a stone balanced on the edge of understanding. Some days, I wrote about lingering fear, my pen trembling. On others, I recorded moments of peace, Mark's gentle smile in the morning, the way his hand found mine during late-night reading sessions. Slowly, the pages began to fill, weaving a tapestry of raw honesty and cautious optimism. Now, as I look back on those dark moments, I understand love can fracture and heal in measure. My heart still carries scars, but they remind me of how fiercely I fought for truth and connection. Marriage, I've learned, isn't a fairy tale but a commitment to face uncertainty together. At 35, I'm more resilient than I've ever been, carrying hope in one hand and honesty in the other. Our story isn't perfect, but it's ours, and that makes all the difference.